Let's stay with water issues now and speak to South African Water Chamber CEO Benoît Le Roy. Thank you so much for your time, Benoît, this evening. One of the things that, of course, as these public hearings are continuing in Mbombela, there's another issue as a country that we continue to grapple with, and this is the issue of water leaks, which is nothing new. We've seen it for years now, and one wonders if the situation has been improving over years to deal with this or not.
Unfortunately, the last 10 years, we've seen the government's own reports, so the no-drop report showing that it is deteriorating at a rapid rate. And the metro with the worst numbers is 58% is eThekwini. So for every 100 litres that eThekwini buys from Genu'uTikela Water Board, it only bills or gets revenue for 42 litres. The other 58 goes in the ground. So that means our water is basically double the price, and this is causing not only wastage of water, but also wastage of revenue to the municipality, but also increasing our costs, which we can't afford.
And I mean, you think about that wastage, and later on, I'd like us to also talk about the issues of accountability. But let's stay with, this critical resource that is water. How much of it would you say that we are losing as a country, apart from eThekwini, then to these particular leaks?
So the official number is just under 48%, and roughly 90% of that, so just over 44% is physical leaks. In other words, the balance is billing errors, meter errors, theft, credit control issues. So over 40% is because of physical leaks, and that's because of infrastructure that's in the same condition, if not worse, than Eskom's generation fleet. It's the same issue, it's no different. There's plenty coal, but you don't have electricity. There's plenty water, but you don't have water in our taps.
And we often hear about this issue of aging infrastructure over time now and all of that. So is it an issue of a lack of planning when it comes to the maintenance of infrastructure? Because we're seeing in some of these, areas and provinces where people are crying about no water, that infrastructure would not be serviced for years. So is this because of a lack of planning, or is it because there's no capacity, or those who are tasked with this simply don't know what they're doing?
I think it's all three of those. So we sort of bundle that into a collapse of governance, and it also doesn't get votes. Unfortunately, in any country in the world, not just South Africa, it doesn't get votes. The infrastructure is below ground. However, we're close to 50%. The rest of the world's 50 to 25%. So it is a global issue, but we have to spend. There are guidelines out there between 2 to 7% of the infrastructure. So, give you an example. Sort of Johannesburg declares 113 billion of water and wastewater, so sanitation infrastructure. So they should be spending between the 5 and 10 billion a year, and they spend just over $1 billion a year in asset rejuvenation and then maintenance. So the situation gets progressively worse until it collapses. The irony is that as you start fixing, it gets worse also, because as you start fixing the good pipes, which tend to the worst pipes, make them into good pipes, and those tend to be the bigger pipes. What happens is you put more pressure downstream, and the downstream is even more decrepit, and that starts bursting. And this is what's happening in eThekwini, for example, and in the city of Joburg. So for the next 4 to 5 years, maybe a bit more, we're going to see increased non-revenue water until we start spending the money in the right places. But we have to do it in very smart ways with smart technology that we can decrease that impact. But it's going to take us 5 to 10 years to, in actual fact, get to a situation where the non-revenue water doesn't increase. It's going to carry on increasing at the rate now. We're not spending enough money, and there are competing issues, but, without water or air, we can't exist. So, it's a catch-22. We didn't do it for 30 years. Now we've got to play catch-up, and unfortunately, we're going to have to change priorities. And the question is, do we stop education? Do we stop policing? Do we stop healthcare to get water? We have to increase the economy. The only way is to increase the economy, and the good thing is for every rand you put into water infrastructure, you actually generate 4 rand of economic activity. So it is a worthwhile deal. It's bankable. We need to do it.
And I mean, I'm listening to what you're saying and what has been said over time, particularly when it comes to the issue of water and how some of the municipalities are failing in just providing this basic service. So how would you say then we view accountability as a country when it comes to some of what we've seen, in the lack of water provision for communities?
I think we saw very quickly in the last decade that electricity, we deployed a lot more electricity, but we did not plan and we did not add the 30 gigawatts extra. With water, we in actual fact have allocated all our water. Now we're wasting half of it. So I think, water and electricity have been seen as necessary evils and not as economic enablers. And what's happened is the chickens have come home to roost. And now with the reducing, fiscal revenue, we have to improve the situation. The good thing, there is good news in this, so we mustn't lose hope, is that there are fifth industrial revolution solutions, digital toolbox we call it, that is widely used in the world to try and play catch up. But for that, we need the best skills in the world. We need a lot of them. They're relatively expensive, but the win is really, really big. So we need to start doing it, and the rest of the world is doing it. South Africa is looking, talking, workshopping, but we're not doing it. So the solutions are there where we can try and accelerate let's say, the remediation of our water security. It is a local government mandate, which is quite difficult for national government who doesn't have capacity, who is a regulator, who is the oversight organ, also the custodian and policy generator. So it's very difficult. They don't have capacity to take over. So we have to sort this out at local government level. And I think it's up to us as citizens to become more active and to make sure that all our basic services are A, depoliticized, and secondly, put on the priority list. And it's all of them. So one's not more important than the other one. But the technology does exist, digital technology does exist to help overcome this extreme burden that we're having. And national government is funding less and less because of the fiscal slag that we have. So we have to use, there's artificial intelligence, there's a lot of digital tools available, there's a lot of money in the private sector available to go in as long as the governance frameworks are amended. To ensure that we get payment, because local governments are not the best customers for the private sector at the moment. So it's quite a storm that we're navigating, but we've done it before, and I'm sure we can do it again. But it must be made a priority, and I think to yourselves we can do that.
Yeah, as a final question then, very briefly, are we holding municipalities accountable enough? I mean, we do see the Department of Water and Sanitation in some of these instances taking municipalities to court, but are we doing enough to hold them to account in that regard for the service that they're supposed to be providing?
No, we're not, because I don't see 100 or 200 municipal managers in court. And, until we do that, they can just carry on. And they're the accounting officers, they are responsible with the teams. So unfortunately, we need to go down the legal route a lot more to demonstrate the issue and to force compliance. So it's up to us to do it. If we don't hold local government to account, it will carry on going like this. So it is up to us. It's not up to government, it's up to us to hold government to account. You're absolutely right.